Yeah.
the other one, so we're good. And we're also live in the group, man. So excited to have you guys, or excited to have you for all the audience, all the guys. A lot of you guys know Scott Oldford. So ROI Method, Nuclear Project, a lot of stuff. I don't know if you want to give a quick background on you and like kind of like what you've been through. I'm super familiar with it. I know a lot of my audience is, but maybe just real quick, and then we can dive into some recession-proof stuff.
Absolutely. Should I see 4 versions of me on the bottom here, by the way?
Wow.
I don't know if there's like 4 of me. I don't know if there's supposed to be 4 of me.
You just went Matrix on me.
That's how it goes. So anyways, yeah, but I mean, a little bit of background in less than 30 seconds. Been an entrepreneur since I was 7, 8 years old. Had $1 million business by the time I was 16. Lost it all by the time I was 21. Typical up and down story. At this point, I'm at 12 businesses past 7 figures that I own 100%. I've helped over 100 businesses over 7 figures, and the ones that I've mentored, most of them multiple 7 figures. So when it comes to scaling online businesses, strange skill to have, but hey, it's use whatever you can. You know what I mean?
There you go. And dude, I'm super excited you hopped on with us to talk about kind of like the weird stuff that's going on and just a lot of the uncertainty. And if you guys haven't read it, we'll probably put a link in the comments or in the description or whatever to Scott's report on this, which is really, really good and in depth. And, you mentioned in there, a lot of us have been, predicting some sort of recession, right?
Yep.
Pretty much nobody expected it to be like it's been. And what I've seen is kind of 2 camps of folks in the sense of like, we have one camp that thinks it's okay, probably 6 months, then the economy is going to like take a huge upturn and it's sort of back to normal. And then there's another camp of people who it's like, no, this is probably going to be something that's more in terms of the economy, a year, 2 years, if not more. So I'm just curious, we'll kind of start broad and then go narrow, but what's your outlook in respect to kind of where you think we're heading this year, 2020?
So I try not to get too attached to ideas, because when you try to get attached to ideas, you end up having a lot of biases and that type of thing. So I try to work with facts as much as possible, and science and math more than I try to use some hunch in my belly for this type of stuff. The way I'll put it is this: if you see a rebound in the next 3, I would expect a rebound in 3 to 6 months. But it is going to be the beginning of the real recession.
Right.
Okay. So I think what's going to happen is a lot of people are going to be like, oh, this is done. It was a COVID-19 issue. And not realize that like economy's kind of been propped up for a while. And we were kind of in a silent bailout before COVID-19. In my opinion, in order to allow Donald Trump to get reelected, right? Because when the economy goes down, it's a little bit more difficult to get reelected sometimes. So, does the stock market go up in 3 or 4 months? Maybe. But then I think the whole thing's gonna end up collapsing. And we're at 25 million. I think we're about 25 million job losses. And I think what people are like, and I think we're gonna get to 40. And I think in America alone, and I think the problem that you got to like think about is, a lot of people are like, oh, the jobs are going to come back. I'm like, a lot of those jobs didn't really, want to be like, a lot of those jobs weren't jobs to start with. They were people that, don't really need to have like AI and robotics and everything else can replace those people. So, I don't know. I think there's a lot of opportunity. Anytime there's a transition, there's always a lot of opportunity. That's what I prefer to look at. But in terms of being like, oh, this is all going to go back in 3 to 4 months, I think that's complete bullshit. Right. I think anybody that says that is listening to the insecurity of themselves and trying to just say it because they don't want to freak people out. And the way I look at it is, you know what? Let's look at the truth, and let's then look at how we make it. We use that as an advantage instead of putting our head in the sand and doing, the ostrich. You know what I mean? So I think that's where it's to. I think 2021 is going to be a tough year for a lot of people. I think the mortgage industry, It's gonna be fun. I think, I think a lot of things are gonna be very different than they were. Very, very, very different than they were. And I definitely am not the camp of people that I was like, hey, everything's gonna go back to normal. That's for sure.
Yeah. And what I'm hearing is like, even though we might see a rebound of like, once let's say quarantine was over tomorrow, right? People are going to be like rushing.
You're going to get an initial rush of people.
Yeah.
And I think but here's the other thing you got to like look at is that the the US is the world's reserve currency. And 2008, if you watched any of the movie, maybe you don't like to read, or if you're listening to this, just go watch The Big Short if you haven't watched that movie yet.
It's a really good movie.
That movie proves that the feds have their own playbook and they can change it anytime they want. And so right now, gold should be going up. There's no gold left. But the gold price hasn't gone up. Why hasn't the price of gold gone up? That doesn't make any sense. So there's a lot of things that, the other element of like things that should happen aren't necessarily going to happen because we don't know what the playbook is. I think that's the other element. But I also, if we go any longer than more than like a year or two, it's going to be like, what's that, Bugs Bunny, I feel like we're going over the cliff right now, right? And we're like trying to look down, but no one's willing to let down. And it's just how long do everyone kind of be like, we want to pretend that nothing's happening. We want to pretend that this debt's not here. We want to pretend that, this hasn't happened. So that's my belief.
Yeah. And it reminds me when you said The Big Short, one of my favorite books on this, guys, if you ever read it, is The Creature of Jackal Island, I think is the book. I don't know if you read that.
I haven't read that one.
It's about the Federal Reserve, and it just reveals a lot of, it's really what you said. Playbook is what kind of triggered it for me, is like, it's about what their playbook is and how they're basically making their own rules. So just to reflect back a little bit, from what I got, we'll see a little bit of a bump, maybe in like 3 months whenever it comes down, but it's really just kind of delayed the bigger recession that we have already been headed towards.
100%. And I've been getting ready for 2021. That's why I had a much larger business, and I kind of like, I was going into it. I was like, I was doing $400,000 or $500,000 of expenses a month, and I was like, I can't go into a recession with that. I can't. I don't want to go into a recession. I don't want to go into a recession with that level of responsibility, because when things are up and down, people don't make emotional or logical decisions. They make emotional decisions. And when they make emotional decisions, and we've seen this right now, and we're going to continue to see this, people make, most people make terrible decisions when they're making more emotional decisions and knee-jerk decisions. Or what you're seeing even right this moment, which I predict that would happen, you got a lot of people freezing. People are like, what should I do? And, what you definitely should do is, focus on doubling down, definitely on audience growth, and doubling down on things that are going to be able to give you a return over the next 5 years. But that might be audience growth, that might be real estate, that might be whatever you're good at.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was going to ask you about that later on, but I'll ask you now. So if you're somebody, there's two kind of, there's certain people where they're like, everything's about generating cash flow right now. There's other people who maybe they've seen a little bit of a dip and they made some messaging pivots or whatever, but they're wondering like, how do I, like, what should I be doing differently? How should I be investing the cash that I have, that I've stored up over the years to, be able to come out of this better than I came in? So in terms of audience growth, if you're like a coach consultant, which is a lot of my audience, who has significant cash on hand to where they're good, they have a good runway, what do you feel like, or how would you be thinking about building an audience and like reinvesting into some assets like that?
Yeah.
How would you be thinking about that if you were somebody who had the cash to be able to spend?
So first off, you got to like make sure, the first thing I always would be looking at is what's your unfair advantage. I had a mentor when I was 16, 17 years old that was a billionaire. I got very lucky to have a billionaire mentor when I was young. And he said, Scott, never invest in something that you don't have an unfair advantage in. Okay. And I, that's why I don't understand real estate. So, until I understand real estate and I have an unfair advantage in real estate, I'm not going to do it. But I do have an unfair advantage when it comes to audience building because I know how to do it so well. I do have an unfair advantage of being able to go and buy, if I want to, buy and start SaaS-based businesses and more cash flow-based businesses. I have the advantage of being really an amazing marketer. So I can go and help other businesses or take a percentage in businesses or take equity in businesses during this time to be able to help them. So that's what I'm personally doing, right? So I want to do what I know I'm good at. So assuming that you have some level of online brand, what I would be doing right now is I would be doing audience building and saying, okay, you know what? Just the same way I would put money into the stock market. I'm not gonna, unless you're a day trader, you're not putting money into the stock market, taking it out 2 days from now. And so a lot of people look at marketing and advertising and they're like trying to get, return on investment 7 days, 14 days in advance. And, can you put $1 in and get $1 back in that amount of time? Yes. But what I want to be looking at is let me build audience. Let me get phone numbers, email addresses, and pixels. Let me get them in my Facebook community or whatever community that you have. And let's look at the next 5 years. And I think a lot of people, they don't look at that long because they might not think that they're going to be in that business for that long. Yeah. But looking at the next 5 years, because at a certain point, I was watching this video that just got cut up from my last event that I'm going to publish in the next few days. And that was about 2 months ago, 3 months ago. And I was like, guys, you have until the end of 2023 maximum to build audience. After that, it's going to be too costly. It's going to be too difficult, all these types of things. And so right now, attention is way cheaper than we've seen it. With Facebook's down half, YouTube's down 80%. What I'm seeing across the board. Other advertising's down way more because a lot of people are in that freeze mode. And personally, I've been getting 60-cent $1 leads off of Facebook, which is unprecedented. And the way I look at it is if I spend 10 grand and I get 10,000 new people that are following me, and they're in America, they're business owners, they're somewhere. America, they're not, they're not in a language that doesn't even understand English. As long as they have there's some type of business. At some point, it's not that hard to be able to make that money back, right? I got to suck pretty hard in order to make that money back. So it's about giving them things that are helpful, building audience, being generally just helpful right now, adding value right now. And it's all the stuff I always talked about with my methodology, the ROI method, of just continually being relevant, utilizing content to be able to hack their attention, and then utilizing intimacy and communities, things like this to be able to, pull people towards you so that you can turn them into customers at the end of the day.
I love it. Real quick, why 2023 it's going to be more expensive? I think I know why, but for anybody wondering why it's going to be too expensive to really build an audience, what's your theory?
I mean, I think there's a few things that are going to happen. Number one is online business is going to grow probably at least by 5, if not 10x, this online business niche that we're in. We're at the infancy still. We're at the early adopter stage still of this. And number 2, the algorithm is going to get much more difficult. Number 3, I think that coaching is going to get reclassified, as being an MLM by Facebook. Once that happens, you're not going to even be able to use Facebook ads. And so my entrepreneurship, people are like, well, that's not predictable or sustainable. I'm like, business isn't predictable or sustainable. Like that's not, there's no truth in that. You know what I mean? If Apple didn't innovate for 5 years, they'd be behind, you know what I mean? So the way I look at it is utilize something when it's working, and then when it's not working, find something else. But it's the algorithm, it's the number of people, it's the cost, it's also corporate America and corporations in the Fortune 500 starting to put all their advertising dollars into these different platforms. So I think it's going to be really difficult, past a couple of years from now to be able to build an audience unless you have a bunch of money or unless you have somebody that already has influence that's going to lend you the ability. I think they call it the kingmaker or some shit in the YouTube world to help you, build that influence.
I love that. That's good. And real tactical question real quick, and then I want to zoom out and go over some recession stuff. But because of things like that, should people be worried about building because there's a lot of thinking around get them off Facebook or YouTube as fast as you can onto your email list. Are you real bullish on that because of some stuff that's going on with 2023 or in the future? I'm building
a text software as a service right now. I'm building a social platform right now, SaaS platform right now. It is not a matter of if,
It's a matter of when. So if I don't have them out of there, and I don't want them to be Facebook pixeled. I want every pixel I can get so I can put them across the rest of the internet. Facebook is the one that'll go first, then YouTube, then kind of things will fall after that. YouTube's a lot more. I'm much more bullish on email and texting and direct mail than anything else. Yeah. Getting people's phone numbers, getting their address, getting that information. Well, no one can take that from me.
Right.
But a pixel, I've had my ad accounts banned, so that's gone. My pixel's gone. My Facebook group, I'm moving my Facebook group off of Facebook. Right now, I'm in the middle of doing that right now. It's going to be an app. It's going to be an iPhone and Android app, and I want control. I want to be able to control my audience, and I don't think that if you're starting out, you need to worry about that. But if you're a leader in this, if you're at 7 figures and you're like a leader in this, I think you got to get them off of a platform you don't own.
100%. So, transitioning more into like how people can prepare for this year. I know you mentioned, because what I really want to know is like, what's going to be the difference between people who really struggle and don't make any progress at all or actually decline versus the people who can sustain and even thrive during this. Now, I know you teach like 4 pillars in your manual and your report. So maybe this is something you want to touch on here, but overall, like, what do you think is going to be the difference between people who struggle versus people who do really well?
I think anybody that is not going to sell a painkiller and not going to sell a lifeboat, you're going to have a hard time. Right? You're going to have a hard time. Anybody that, people that are in education, coaching, consulting, marketing, those services, I think they're going to do really, really well. I think if you're helping other people upgrade their consciousness, right? Allow themselves to, have a new life, get them transition out of their 9-to-5, their corporate job, help them become an entrepreneur. I think you're going to do really well. I think that, a lot of economies and a lot of jobs are going to go away though. I think that that's just the truth, and people just got to be ready to roll with the punches on that one.
Absolutely. For people who are wondering, I know what you mean, but what's the difference between like a lifeboat and a painkiller? Say like a vitamin.
Yeah, I mean, I think you just got to reassociate what you're selling to make it so that it's really impacting someone's financial life, their relationship, love, or their health. You know what I mean? Those are the 3 things that people are going to continually always spend money on. And so you really got to just position it on how do you make this not a nice to have, but a must have, and changing from need to want to must. And being able to get that person to a must is going to be able to, radically change your life, and radically change your business of being able to actually provide something that someone's like, oh, of course I need that. Like I need that right now. I think I'm not going to wait. Like I'm not going to worry about the money. Let's do this.
Absolutely. And so, because I know you talked a lot in that report about changing your positioning as well, and like old messaging, and this is actually really true for even somebody like me who's not, I didn't get thrown into like, a crazy amount of fear or anything, but even for me, seeing ads that post-corona, if there wasn't some sort of, not as much now, but at least like the first couple of weeks after, if there wasn't some sort of like acknowledgement of it, it almost kind of falls on deaf ears. And I know you mentioned like not acknowledging what's going on is going to cause that. A lot of people are going to have their ads fall on deaf ears. So if you're somebody running ads or even doing organic marketing on like Facebook or one of these platforms, how do you, aside from shifting from vitamin to painkiller, change your positioning in marketing?
Well, first of all, I think you gotta be careful because anything that has anything to do with recession or scarcity or COVID is getting banned right now on Facebook ads. So I think that's something new from the time that I wrote that guide. Okay. Which was, considering my program's called Recession Proof, didn't do too well for me. Okay, so I went maybe two for the jugular on that one. But beyond that, I think the positioning is allowing somebody to understand how investing with you is going to give them more security and certainty. That is what you're selling. You're selling the solution you're selling is someone feeling safe. That is what you're selling. You're no longer selling freedom. You're selling, here is safety, here is certainty, and you're an entrepreneur or you're a person or whatever it might be,
and I'm trying to give you certainty in life because right now you're feeling the uncertainty of life.
Absolutely.
Right. And so, we're always going around in a very uncertain life, but people forget about it. Right. People forget about it. A major event happens to them. And so right now we're into a major event that is happening to a majority of us. And so in times where, something's happening to a majority of us, we're refocusing attention on something that is happening that allows us to go back to our, core human needs and human wounds. And the human wound is, life isn't as secure as I thought it was. Life isn't as, life isn't as safe as I thought it was to be in. And so I think, in one way, I think it's great. I think it's a mass awakening for a lot of people. And a lot of people are going to be like, oh, wait a minute. Because when things are comfortable, we get comfortable. And we get kind of okay with the routine of life and just doing the things we do. But things like this allow us to pay attention and bring more awareness to what's going on in our day-to-day life.
Dude, absolutely. And on the note of positioning, you're mentioning we're kind of talking about repositioning messaging, but also repositioning offers. And you said there's certain opportunities for people who maybe they're doing high ticket to experiment with like a mid to low ticket. And in my personal observation, I've seen a lot of people, and maybe it's a little bit of an overreaction, depends on, a lot of it's contextual, shift towards trying to do like a low ticket type of thing. What are your thoughts on that? And I mean, who should be doing or considering something like that? And then what do you feel like is like the best way to get that?
Yeah, I mean, I think what you got to realize is that the mid level, I think, is going to be hurting a little bit right now. I think it's that you got to go ultra high. Like my one-on-one, I've had 8 new one-on-one clients in the last 2 weeks. Most I've, ever. I mean, I don't really, that's not something I even market that hard.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. So I think, masterminds, I think, are going to be a little tough right now. Events, obviously, going to be pretty much impossible right now. Right. I think that one-on-one offers, very, very high-end offers, they're going to do really well. People, there's an element where people want to like dive really into something, and they, the people that want to do that, they're willing to pay money. So I think that's I think there's a lot still there. Whether or not, hey, should you go, create this new product or that new product? Think about it this way: is that new product still going to help you 6 months from now? 12 months from now, 18 months from now? How's that going to position your brand 18 months from now? Whatever it might be. For me, because I've sort of kind of like have the market share I have now, I can start putting out different levels of offers. And that's what I'm starting to do. But it's also because I'm partnering with people on these different types of offers, and I'm utilizing them to new colder audiences because I'm, really kind of going more aggressive on my audience building right now. But if you're a solopreneur or you're doing less than $500,000 a year, I think it's about repositioning that offer and giving more intimacy maybe than it is, oh, let me go scrap this entire offer and let me go and sell surgical masks. You know what I mean?
Yeah, or even low to mid ticket. I mean, and my interpretation on that is that it's kind of similar to audience and asset building. Is if you're somebody who the past 3 years you were making a lot of money and you have a lot of stockpiled, to me, it could make sense to roll out some low ticket stuff to where you're looking at it as an investment and you're acquiring assets opposed to like, oh, okay, well, my high tickets, I got a few objectives.
You definitely, if you're trying to make money, do not go low ticket. If you're trying to get volume and you're trying to bring new people in so that 3 years down the line, they're going to buy from you, then that's great. Like I'm doing like a $97. I'm doing some 97, 197, 297 offers. I'm not going to make any money on that. You know what I mean? Even if I get 1,000 people to buy it. Okay. Even if I got 1,000 people to buy it. Okay, sweet. I made $100,000, cool. And that might be a lot to someone, but you know how hard it is selling $1,000, selling something to 1,000 people. It is hard, and you get this. It's just as easy to sell it's just as easy to sell something at 500 than it is 5,000. You know what I mean? You're going to spend the exact same amount of energy. You're just spending the energy differently. So, I wouldn't recommend going out and doing the $37 offer, $97 offer, unless you know that, okay, I'm doing that so that this is building me more of an ecosystem over time.
Right. Assets, addresses, phone numbers.
Correct.
Goodwill.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. You got it.
Away from marketing and sales, how should people, especially high ticket, be communicating, you feel like, with their clients? I know you're big on intimacy, and like, that's at a premium right now. Curious what your thoughts are there.
I think the biggest thing is you gotta give them more right now, more intimacy right now. If you want to keep them, you got to give them more intimacy, and you got to give them certainty. You got to give them what they want, right? Which is certainty. They're buying certainty. They're buying your presence. They're buying your attention, and you really got to be guiding them. Hey, this is how we're going to do this. Here's what I think is going to happen. Here, I've been researching. I think this is what's going to happen. Hey, I think this is the angle we need to go with. Getting ahead of it versus, and then also being very upfront, being like, hey, based on your finances, maybe it's better to downgrade to this other package so that we can keep working together for 3 or 4 months without you having to renew. I think the worst thing you do right now is just ignore it. Ignore like the elephant in the room of their uncertainty and their freeze. And then because when someone decides that they're no longer going to work with you, trying to go backpedal on that decision is really difficult. But if you go to them beforehand, that they're actually, and you're actually kind of almost advising them. Like there's some clients, I went to them and I said, hey, listen, you need to fire me, like right now, right? Like you don't have a chance right now. And if you keep me 3 months from now, you're going to fire me, but we're not going to have a relationship anymore. And I'd rather you stop paying me and then we'll come back and whenever, things are good, or maybe never, but at least we have our relationship in that. And I think from that level, you keep your authority with that person as well. And you keep that also goodwill with that person being like, wow, that person actually cares about me versus, well, I'm going to keep getting this person. I had one person, they're like, I'm going to lose 10 clients if I, go this way. I'm like, listen, call them up, lose them, then go find the other ones. Because if not, you're going to lose 10 clients and they're going to talk to some other people and then you're going to lose 20 clients. So it's better to be in front of it. I lost $100,000 in recurring revenue the end of February, early March. Okay. Almost every single dollar, all but like $7,000. It was me going to them and being like, hey, we need to pause. We need to extend. We need to whatever. Cause I knew this was coming and I knew that they needed to have time based on what I knew about their financials. And that also freed up a lot of space for me to be able to take the one-on-one clients that were ready to pay and did have the money in their bank account and actually allowed me to make far more money and generate far more than that at $100,000. And I kept all the goodwill $100,000 a month. And I kept all that goodwill with all those other people and still, text back and forth and help them as much as I can.
I love it, man. And so tactical question on that then, because a lot of people have had clients, hit them up to cancel, right? I love what you're saying is like, first is it the best thing for them to keep you on as an advisor, as a coach, as a consultant, whatever, make that decision first. Let's say you say it is. How would you have a conversation with that client who's like in a little bit of a panic state? They want to cancel, but you know that you need to lead them through this, and it's better for them to be able to stay with you.
I think you got to be like, anytime I work with anybody, I know their finances. So it's a question of finances. It's a question of knowing where they're to financially, and then reverse engineering. Okay, hey, listen, you need to be here, or you need to be there. And then, being flexible with your own revenue, your own fees, your own, everything else, right? It's like, would I rather get, if I was charging someone 10 grand a month, would I rather charge them 10 grand a month or say, listen, we're going to go down to 5,000 for the next 4 months. And then we'll see how kind of everything goes. Right. Would I rather have no money or 20 grand? That's the question. Right. And I think that's a personal question too. You know what I mean? You might be at a place where you got $2 million in your bank account and you don't give a fuck. Then that's different. If you're like, you know what, if you don't pay me that, see you later. And that's your personality and that's your style and that's your style. That's not my style. Doesn't matter how much money I have in the bank account. I'm caring about the people that I'm working with in that way. But that's very much a personal question.
Absolutely. So on the flip side, what about team? Like, how do you communicate with your team and keep that? Because I feel like a lot of teams can come out on this a lot better than even, it could be something that brings the team stronger together. So
I think at the end of the day, you got to be upfront with your team, and you got to also be like, hey, if you don't open up your books to your team, that's the time to do it. Be like, hey, here's where we are. here's where we need to be, and here's what's going to have to happen. You know, Mike Dillard, was listening to a podcast on his, and I really agree with what he said, where it's like, you know, hey, if we're typically at 120,000 a month and we get down to 80,000, we're going to have to cut everyone's, you know, salaries by half. If we go down to 50,000, we're going to have to cut, you know, you're going to have to skip a payment. And if you're not cool with that, I'm going to have to let you go. And just, you know, from that perspective, I think that's a really good way to be able to bring the team together if you need to be at that level. I think this is not a time, though, to like pretend nothing's happening. You know what I mean? This is absolutely a time to bring the team together, where it's like, hey, we need to hustle to make this happen. We need to hustle to make that happen, and be again in front of it. It's leadership is being in front of it and over communicating. It doesn't matter who it's to. And so I think it's very important to allow your team also to come up with ideas on, okay, how can we make more revenue? Or, you know, someone might be like, hey, you know, I saw one team, you know, they all submitted, hey, listen, I can, you know, you can take $400 off for the next 3 months out of my pay. I don't need that right this moment. And like, you know, give it to the other guy that, you know, can't do that right now, to make it so that, you know, the team sort of comes together that way. That's another, you know, obvious option. But more than anything else, if you got to let go team, let them go. I ended up $1 million in debt because I didn't let go of my team back in 2010, 2011. That's why I ended up $1 million in debt. So, you know, if something's bleeding, you got to cut it, because it's just going to keep on bleeding. And don't keep team, you know, on hoping that you're going to be able to hit the numbers. You should be able to keep your team on regardless if you hit your numbers. And if it's not that situation, then you've either hired too fast or you have too much bloat inside of the team to start with.
Dude, 100%. And I've heard that. I didn't know that was why you ended up in that debt, but I've heard that even actually, you mentioned Mike Dillard. I think he made a similar mistake with a business he had, you know, back in around the 2008 or maybe
Yep.
before that, right? It's where that's a common mistake. People want to hold on. They want to do it's all in a positive intention.
Well, I thought a lot of people have a major emotional attachment to their team, and their team's their friends.
Yeah.
And that's where, you know, your team, they can be your friends, but you got to take care of yourself before you take care of your friends, or there's not going to be anyone else around. Like it's one of those things where it's like people get very emotionally attached to their team. And, you know, especially when you have a small team, it's even more intense, because that's who you're spending, you know, 8 to 10 hours a day with. You know, it might feel ruthless sometimes. You know, hardest thing I ever did was fire my first person, you know, back in the day. But I mean, I've hired and let go hundreds of people at this point. Mm-hmm. And you know, I can say that they'll forgive you. You know, and if they don't, it's not a big fucking deal, anyways. Yeah. You know, it's what it is. And also, I think people are like afraid of like, oh, I'm never gonna be able to find like another good person that's gonna be able to do that, and that's also bullshit too. There's always somebody there's always somebody better than the person that you have right now. That's just your own scarcity mindset coming in the way.
Yeah. One of my favorite things, you probably studied Mark Ford, that he talks about, I think, is the open seat. I forget what he calls it. Open seat something. But basically, it's like as soon as you let go and as soon as you cut the cord on somebody you know you should let go of, magically finding the right person to replace that person becomes exponentially more easier.
So much easier. So much easier.
But let me ask you probably one of the most important questions. I should have asked you probably in the very beginning, but mindset-wise, I know you're huge on mindset. You know, what is the type of mindset that the people who succeed through this and do the best, what type of mindset do those people need to have?
Worst case scenario, you die. So it's like people get so caught up with everything. You just got to surrender. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen anyways. You only have so much control. You have a little bit of control in life. And there's a lot of safety in that notion. You know, when it's like, you know, one of my favorite books is The Surrender Experiment. And I sold my last business. I sold my business back in 2019 and shut down the other part of it. After I read that book, I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm doing this for my ego. I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm just going to surrender and let it happen. You know what I mean? Like I can't, you know, am I going to get COVID-19? I don't know. I just got to surrender to that. You know what I mean? I can't go around like thinking about it all day long. I just as easy go out and get hit by a car and die tomorrow. You know what I mean? So there's an element of surrendering and just like showing up every day and, you know, doing your best, trusting yourself, loving yourself unconditionally, you know, trust in others as much as you possibly can, being cool with failure, being cool with success. It's all part of this journey. And just, you know, falling in love with the process of everything that, like, life seasons, man. You know, last year I've been working like 15 hours a week, and now I'm working like 50, 60. Life seasons, you know, and so there's a season of up and there's a season of down, and this too shall pass all the time. Everything, doesn't matter what emotion you have, what feeling you have, this too shall pass. We will one day turn to dust. And, you know, I think, you know, Steve Jobs best said it, of the fact that, like, you know, every single day you just wake up and you just do your best, and you do things you love, and you just show up 1,000%, you be yourself, and you end up where you want to be in life. You typically doing that. It's when you don't do that, that's when you find yourself in places where you don't want to be in you know, not as good situations. So, you know, I think mindset wise, so many things inside of there, so many therapy sessions and hypnotherapy sessions and everything else that I'm sure that's inside of there. But, you know, the basis of it is that once you really are able to surrender everything, just imagine not having any money. Imagine losing all your money. Imagine losing, you know, one of my favorite exercises. Imagine giving everything you have away, everything, your relationship, your, you know, everything. It's just you. And just be able to sit in that and surrender to that. And everything else is easy after that.
Dude, that's great. And that's the second recommendation of the surrender experiment that I've gotten this week. So it's probably time to call.
I started at the time. I don't have a bathtub anymore, unfortunately. I'm gonna do that for the next house, but I don't have a bathtub. But I used to have this fucking beautiful bathtub back in Venice, and I used to read in there, like, you know, almost once a day at least. And I literally stayed in the tub all day reading that. Like, I've canceled all my meetings, and I just stayed in the tub, becoming a prune, reading that book. And I got out, and I was like, oh shit, whoa! I just had some shit fucked up in my life, and then I, you know, went and made some pretty major changes.
Got to take a read.
Yeah,
random question, because you've mentioned hypnotherapy, and this is just a personal, selfish question, but I've been thinking heavily about getting into that. I go deep down the rabbit hole and all this stuff. So I feel like I remember you writing about that somewhere.
Yeah, I actually own a hypnotherapy company, so that's probably why you see that. So if you go to readytorewire.com/guide, readytorewire.com/guide, I wrote about the 12 major mindset blocks. And so hypnotherapy, so I partnered with my hypnotherapist, which is like a celebrity hypnotherapist. She's amazing, runs a company training hypnotherapists. And so I partnered with her on a program called Rewired that includes hypnotherapy. So it's what I know about entrepreneurship in the brain, paired with live one-on-one sessions with hypnotherapists that are trained on those core issues of the entrepreneur. But yeah, hypnotherapy has been great. I've been doing about 2 hours a day for about a year now, 2 hours a week for about a day. Let's get that right. 2 hours a week for about a year now. And cool. I mean, probably one of the best things in terms of condensing time, because I've done probably about 1,000, 1,500 hours of therapy. And the problem with therapy is you just keep on talking about your problems, not doing anything about it. And it actually enlarges your problems a lot of the time. I think it's important, but what I like about hypnotherapy is you actually go in and you change the patterning instantaneously. And I mean, I've used it in so many places in my life. It's been so valuable. I would highly recommend it.
I'm going to do it. So that was my questions. I'm curious, what questions should I have asked you that I forgot?
No, I think those are good questions. I mean, I think we are in the right business right now. You know, we're at the right time at the right place. There's no doubt about that. I know I'm at the right time in the right place. If you're watching this, you're probably at the right time in the right place. And I think it's about going down the let's utilize this opportunity as much as you possibly can while we're here. And I think that's important. And I think it's probably more important than you might even think it is. And so right now is definitely not the time to freeze. Right now, if you're going to do anything, don't be fearful. Don't freeze. Don't flight. If you're going to do anything, fight. And you know, it doesn't matter if you have how much money you have in the bank. This could be an amazing opportunity. You know, I'd love to have way more money than I had in the bank that, you know, coming into this. But I look at this and I'm like, this is the highest potential I have right now. Like, this is like, I'm in the exact right, perfect place, right time. And no matter what you're doing, you have the ability to be at the right time in the right place. All it takes is effort, having the right mentors, having the right guides, listening to the right advice, putting in the work, and not listening to that little mind of yours that has some of that insecurity and has some of that you know, self-doubt, and just really being okay, listening to your gut, being your authentic self, and it's just fucking don't listen to the news. Don't listen to the news. Try to get as much of that stuff out of your life, because that'll ruin your life.
Totally agree, dude. So we'll wrap it up. I mean, you have so many resources, and I'm sure we'll link them. But in terms of people wanting to know more about, you know, your one-to-one stuff, I don't know if that's open, or your recession-proof guide, or any of this stuff. I think is the best place to direct them.
Yeah, they can go to scottoldford.com. They can also go to recessionproofnow.com. There's some really good resources over there. And then, you know, I work with people one-on-one. It's not inexpensive by any stretch of imagination, but you know, just contact me and you know, kind of give me where you are in business. Typically, I end up working with people that are at least 100,000 a month in their business and above, that really kind of want to grow and want to do it right the first time. And yeah, I mean, that's really it. You go over to scottoldford.com and the rest will, you know, I'll take you in and give you the things you need to know from there.
Beautiful. Cool. Well, dude, thank you for hopping on with us, man. We'll hop off here and we'll see you guys later.
Thank you so much, man. I'll talk to you soon.